Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to do an in-depth review of Homa. Homa just released today, and I find her skills are really interesting, and I think she's a very strong character. Her skills are pretty detailed, and I think there's a lot of nuance to them that you should know how it exactly works. So I wanted to do an in-depth guide to talk about her skills, very specifically focusing on these three skills, because I think most people will run with them. But I think there's a lot of use from her other skills as well, and we will touch on them after. But I really want to focus on these three skills. And I also want to do a video where I kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to run with this into a sample battle and show you what I mean. So we're going to start with this skill. It's called Hovering Support, and what it does is Homa makes Balor, one of her birds, stay on the target, giving them move to, jump, and both Homa and whoever the target is will gain attack 2. So if I'm casting it, for example, on August, you can see that August has that flashy thing, which means Balor is hovering on August now. Um, and both Homa and August gains the attack 2 buff. August also gains move 2 and jump as well. So one of the first things I want to say about the skill is that it can also be used on Homa herself. And there are two reasons why you might want to use it on Homa. So in addition to what I just said, during the time when Balor is called to attack or heal, when Balor is hovering around somebody, all of Balor's skills, attacking or healing, will be increased by 1.5 times. And that lasts for 2 turns. So say you're in a spot where you only have Homa by yourself, you don't have any other allies to support you, and you're going to attack with Homa, you might as well use the skill on Homa herself first, which you can do like this, to have Homa benefit from the attack buffs, and also to have Balor benefit from the increased damage, because Balor at the first star, Balor is going to do 20% of Homa's physical attack as damage, but whenever Balor is hovering, it's going to do 1.5 times, so 20% becomes 30% of attack. So regardless of if Homa has the hovering support, like even if I did not use the skill, whenever I attack with Homa, Balor automatically comes and attacks. So you might say that this might be a wasted skill to use on Homa because he's going to attack anyway, but don't forget the other benefits, like you also get attack 2, and Balor's damage is going to be increased as well. As I said, if you don't have any other targets, then you might as well use it on Homa simply because you're just wasting the damage that you would otherwise be getting. Unless maybe next turn you feel like you can get Homa into the space of using it on an ally, but if there's no allies you can use it on, then in my opinion you might as well use it on Homa. Okay, and there's another reason why you might want to use the skill on Homa as well. As you can see here, Homa's default movement range is 3 spaces. She can reach up to here. So if I use the skill on Homa, her movement increases to 5, and it's an instant skill, so she can move right after. So already you should be able to see that you can just, there might be things that you might not be able to reach in one turn because of the 3 movement, but if you use this skill on Homa herself, you can get right into range. And there are some other skills we're going to talk about where she can heal heroes, and so before, with the 3 movement range, you might not be able to get Homa into the space to heal, but now with the 5 movement you might be able to. And even if as I said, even if the ally that you're trying to heal is in range or whatever, like it's always better to have Balor supporting somebody, even Homa herself, so that the heal that you're going to do is also increased by 1.5 times, because Balor's heals and his attacks all increase by 1.5 times whenever Balor is hovering. So I feel like this is a really good skill. Over the course of the game, it's going to do a lot of damage. Um, there is, like, whenever Homa attacks herself, Balor automatically attacks, right? And then if it's on someone else, um, and and that person attacks, they also attack. So even at like just the first star, when Balor is hovering, it does 30% of damage. So that's 60% of damage just in one round. And if you're going for 10 rounds, that's like 600% of damage, right? So it adds up to quite a bit. Over time, it will be a lot of damage, and it's an instant skill. So Homa can use it on an ally, and then she can attack herself. So I think it's a really fantastic skill. The second skill we're going to talk about is this one called Tacit Choice. I feel like this is one of those skills that is cheating because it's too good. Cocoa has the same thing. I feel like it's like this game is trying to minimize the choices that you have because it only lets you pick 3 skills, but then it lets one skill be 2 or 3 skills, and I feel like that just beats the design. Now you don't have to worry about which one to bring because you just bring one and you get everything, right? So anyway, that's a little rant there. But both of these skills are very, very good. The first one you're going to look at is called Barul Attack. So this one calls a different bird to deal 80% of single target attack and inflicts blind. And then the important part is that it inflicts physical defense down 3. Physical defense down 3 is a very unique debuff in the game right now. There isn't anyone else that can do that. It decreases physical defense by 60%. The only similar one that we have is physical defense down 2, I guess, but it only goes up to 40%. So, I mean, 40 to 60% is a huge increase, right, in the defense down that you're able to apply. And obviously, this will be more and more powerful based on the harder enemies that you're fighting. If against bosses, this is going to be very, very strong because you're going to cut 60% of their defense. And one other thing about the skill is that it doesn't have any cooldown. So every 2 turns you can keep on using it, and you can basically permanently reduce the boss's defense by 60% for the entire duration of the fight. And then on top of that, I just want to point out that later on, after you do 80% with a different bird, then Balor comes in and deals 40% of damage, and that 40% of damage will be increased by 50% when Balor is hovering. Okay, and then more chances to blind. So what does blind do? Blind basically makes enemies that are blinded when they're attacking give an 80% chance to miss single target hits. It's probably not going to work on bosses, but against normal enemies, maybe tower content, if you're having difficulty with it, that might help you to be able to do that because you're able to survive because the enemies are going to be missing. Okay, so this is a really good skill. And the other portion of the skill, I think this is what makes Homa a really, really good support. Because until now, Homa has been able to provide more damage amplification, right? With the hovering skill, she's able to add extra damage throughout the course of the fight. And then with the skill we just talked about, which is the Barul attack, she's able to put physical defense down by 60% to increase your damage. So she's really able to add to a fight by bringing a lot more damage. But on top of that, she's also able to bring both healing and debuff removal to the fight as well. And because this is a combo skill, you don't even have to give up anything to bring the healing. You can bring both skills in one, which I think is just insane. But what the skill does, it calls a different bird to heal a target for 70% of the character's attack, and then before it heals, it removes their healing received debuff before healing. So if remember that boss that you're fighting in Weaponry Trial 2, he cast healing received debuff, right? So if you bring her to heal whoever has that debuff, she's going to remove that first and then heal. Very, very strong, because that's what the skill does. It heals, so it removes the only thing that can block the heal and then heals. After that, she calls Balor to heal all allies within 2 tiles of Balor's location. So this is really interesting because you can use this to heal 2 different locations with the same skill. So I'll give you an example of this. So we are going to use, sorry, I'm going to go back here. So we're going to use this on a gust, and we're going to send a gust here. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So we're going to use the skill on a gust. and then we're going to send a gust here. Okay, and we're going to target Nungle with this skill. So you'll see that both of them get healed. So first by the other bird, and then by um, Balor. So you can target, the first one is a single target. So it's going to heal whichever your target is, the first skill. But then the Balor skill, whoever Balor is healing, that's an AoE skill within two targets of wherever Balor is hovering. So I think it's a really good skill. And again, I think it's really, really good because you can bring it without having to sacrifice the defense down skill. So I think most people will want to bring this skill regardless because it's just too good of a supporting skill. You're bringing healing and you're bringing debuff removal, and healing received uh, can be negated before the heal. Also, you can use this on whoever has the Balor hovering around for twice the heal. So if I, in the previous example, if I use it in August, first Golgi will come and heal August for 70%, and then after that, Balor will come and heal August again for 60%, not 40%, 60, because Balor is hovering, so it's increased by 50%, so it'll go from 40 to 60. And then after Balor's healing, it removes two debuffs. So these two skills I think already make Homa very, very good. And then this skill on her 11th rank, it does a bunch of things. It's all around a very, very good skill. So the first thing it does is it grants disturbance to the target. So if I'm targeting Nungle in this case, it's going to grant Nungle disturbance. It'll also grant whoever has Balor hovering on, it will grant them disturbance as well. What does disturbance do? Disturbance makes the ally that they are targeting to dodge one skill. Sorry, to dodge one single attack. As you can see, so it dodges the first single target attack, and it can only be triggered once per round. It lasts for two turns, by the way. So it'll give both. It'll give both whoever you're targeting and whoever Balor is hovering around this disturbance buff. After that, Homa is going to attack for 60% of physical AoE damage for all enemies within 2 tiles. So that'll be like, if I'm targeting here, any enemy that is within 2 tiles of Nungle will receive 60% damage from Homa. And then after that, Balor is going to come and attack for another 60% of damage. So this skill actually does 120% of damage. And I think the Balor's portion will be increased by 30% if Balor is hovering. So this will actually then do 60 plus 90%, so 150% of AoE damage. I think that's a pretty good modifier. Like if you think of Gloria's AoE skills, they don't hit 150%. It's a really strong modifier, I think. And then it also does some additional things as well, like it inflicts no active skills, no passive skills, and then whoever you cast this on, Balor will stay with them. So I want to show you this thing. Let's just try it out because I need more energy to cast this. So I'm going to switch this with urgent order, and then I want to see if I can give both of these guys Balor. Balor is going to be in 2 places at once, I guess. Okay, and then energy. Okay, so let's just check. So the Balor moves. So Balor is not in 2 places at once. I had cast it on August before, but as we can see, Balor is no longer circling August. Balor has moved to Nungle, and it says right there, Balor is on the target. Okay, so that's interesting. I was wondering how the interaction would work out. I noticed it and I wanted to check it, but I thought I would check it, when I'm making this video. It would be really interesting if Balor could be on both targets at once, but of course that would be maybe a bit game breaking because Baylor's supposed to be a single parrot, which is very specific. I mean, every bird has a specific name, so how can Baylor be on two targets, right? Um, okay, so and it's a really good skill to have here, actually, and the reason for that is because the skill to have Baylor hovering on someone has a cooldown of 3 turns, right? So it only lasts for 2 turns and has a cooldown of 3. So by bringing, by having this skill as well, you can use the skill, and then when the cooldown of that is done, you can, sorry, not what the cooldown is done, after 2 turns, you can use the other skill to also have that character, like whoever your choice character is, maybe August or whoever it is, go for 2 more turns, right? And then after that, you can go back to this, and you can keep on alternating so that uh, Baylor is always on the target of your choice. So let's talk about some targets. People have been talking about August pairing so well with Homa, and why is that? So Baylor is going to attack every time. Okay, so Baylor's going to attack in 2 different ways. The first way Baylor will attack is whenever Homa attacks, Baylor attacks, no question about it. Okay, so if you're using, say, this thing here, Baylor will attack when you start and set and strike. It has to be a single target attack though, so if you're using the fire ring, that will not work because it's an AoE attack. But a Baylor will attack whenever Homa is attacking, and then if you put it on another character that will do single target damage, whenever they do single target damage, Baylor will attack as well. So the reason that August is a great target is because August is built in such a way that you want August to attack very often. August has an instant skill that'll attack. Most of the time, you also want August to use. Let me see. Just one more time so I can show you. Oops, stand by. Okay. Most of the time, you also have August using the stun and strike, and then you have the instant attack, and then you have another follow-up attack, and then when his rage triggers, he'll attack again. So basically, August will do a lot of attacks, and every time August attacks, as long as the attack is a single target attack, Baylor will come and assist with the attack as well. So by having a character that is using a lot of attacks, you are able to get Baylor to trigger an attack many, many times. The only one thing that I want to talk a little bit about is when you're using Wrath Snap, that is not a single target attack. It's actually an AoE attack. But I think the third one is still classified as a single target attack. I have to double check that at some point. I mean, feel free to test. But it only goes on single target attacks, not multi attacks. So depending on, if you don't have if you don't have a gust, who else can you use it on? Well, anyone else that does single target attacks. I mean, even if they don't do, as many attacks as a gust, you want, you might as well use it on someone. But whoever your recipient is should be somebody that uses single target attacks often. Gloria depends on if she's a good target or not. Because, I mean, first of all, it depends which basic attack you're using. Like, in her Lance form, she actually does AoE attack. She doesn't do single target attack, right? And she also has several attacks that do AoE, so Baylor will not trigger for that. So it depends how you're using Gloria. If you're using Gloria to do a lot of single target attacks, yes, Baylor is great on her. Otherwise, maybe not so much. But even like long distance characters like Nungle would benefit from Baylor as well. So what about magic attack users in general? I mean, Baylor will still trigger and do the same amount of damage. The only reason why Homa pairs better with physical damage is because of her other skill. Let me just go to that skill for a second. This one. So because she has a physical defense down 3 debuff, that is the reason why most people suggest that, hey, you should pair her with physical attackers so that you can take advantage of this debuff. And I mean, and that's a fair point. I think that's true. So it doesn't mean that Baylor will not work on magical attack users, but just that the whole kit of Homa works better with a physical team. So that's these 3 skills, and I think all these 3 skills are really useful and good. But there are other skills that she has that could be niche, depending on what you're doing. So let's just take a look at that and talk about it for a second. Okay. So this harmony is not bad at all. I mean, it basically, you have this on in the trial that you're doing, and basically gives you a heal, like every turn. It's an AoE heal within 2 tiles of the character, and 1 buffer removal. So depending on the content that you're doing, maybe you might want to bring this instead of the ultimate that she has, because you're able to passively heal every turn as long as Homa does something. And like, why not? It's basically like free healing, right? So you might not even need to bring a dedicated healer, like maybe having Homa and another secondary healer that's not like, Inanna or Angel might work. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on the content and how strong you are. But I think it's a pretty good niche skill to have. So I could definitely see reasons where you might want to bring that. And the other skill as well, it's also a niche skill depending on who you're fighting. Like if you're fighting bosses that do shields, like Weaponry Trial 3, if there's an even harder version of it that comes up or something, this is not a bad skill to have, because then Homa will do even more damage with it. But it depends, because Homa, you're not bringing Homa to do damage. Like, she does okay damage, but you're really bringing Homa to make other people do more damage, right? So of the two, Harmony is probably the one that'll be used more often, although both of them are still a bit niche, in my opinion. And then for the reaction, this one is just so good, because if an enemy attacks from the back or the side, Homa calls Shashin to inflict blind on the attacker for 1 turn, up to 1 time per round. So a blind makes, whenever they're doing a single target attack, they have a 20% chance to hit only, 80% chance to miss. So if Homa manages to dodge, then Homa will do a strike back as well. So that's not bad. This one we already have before, so I'm not going to talk about it. This one is a good one that I wanted to test out, and I did a few tests on it, and it's really interesting. So if you look at the default range of Homa, her skill, her range is 2 to 3, so she can't attack anyone that's right next to her. But with this skill, she can. So she basically has a range from 1 to 3 now. So she can target them with basic attacks. And if there is an enemy within 1 tile of her, it increases her own attack and crit rate by 30%. So even if you're not attacking the person next to you, so say Homa has an adjacent enemy, and then she's attacking an enemy on tile 3, she will still get the increased attack and crit rate boost while attacking that far away enemy, as long as an enemy is right next to her. So this can be useful depending on what you're doing. Like if you want to get as much damage out of her as possible for whatever reason, you can use this, I guess. But like I said, most of the time you're bringing her because you want to make somebody else do a lot more damage. But this is passive damage, so if you, like for example, if you're just not doing anything with the skill, for some reason you found maybe you're bringing Cocoa, and you can use the hovering skill every other turn, so you don't really need to use the skill, then okay, fine. So you might as well bring this one, because you are going to get a little bit extra damage out of her. So why not, right? And remember that her crit rate also gets passed to Baylor as well. So if her crit rate is up by 30%, Baylor also benefits from that extra crit. This one, I'm debating on which one is good, because this one sounds nicer, the Tangling Flying Knives, because after she attacks, she can move, and she gets +1 movement, and whatever the remaining movement is, she can move, so she can reposition herself. But the range is reduced. Before it was 2 to 3 range, and now it's 1 to 2. Versus the other one, Ice Attack, which has the same range, 2 to 3, so that's good. But the other effect is not as nice. Like, it inflicts move -1 for healthy targets lasting for 1 turn. I don't know, to me that's not that great, like the secondary effect, but then the range is better. So I don't know, it's a toss-up. I haven't really decided. I feel like I'm probably going to go for the Tangling Flying Knives, because if I need to use a longer range, like if I need the 2 to 3 range, I would probably just use the regular attack, which is 100% of damage anyway in that range. So that's most likely what I'll end up doing. And then for the rank 11 skill, we already talked about this one. And this one, it does 150% single target attack. Then if the target is injured, deals an additional 20% of damage. If the target is dying, an additional 40% of damage on top of that. So it can do a lot of damage the less health the enemy has. This is, again, good for like boss fights, because otherwise, I mean, if an enemy has like very little health anyway, like normal enemies, you're probably going to defeat them even with the 150% modifier anyway. So you probably don't actually need the extra damage. But against boss fights, even if they're like, say, below 30% health, they still have like a lot of health left. So this would probably help with that. But again, the same thing, I'm repeating myself again. You're usually bringing Homa to help your other DPS do more damage. You're not trying to do a lot of damage with her. So I don't see this skill being used very often. Okay, so what about her trait? Her trait is really good because, I mean, you've already seen what it can do. Let's read. So she ignores block. Her physical attack is increased depending on the star level. And then after Homa or the ally with Balor, so whoever Balor is hovering around, attacks a single target attack, Balor will be called to attack again, dealing 20% of Homa's physical attack as damage. So as you increase in stars, a few things happen. I mean, obviously her physical attack from 5% goes to 20%. I mean, that's pretty standard. Everyone has something similar like that. Balor's damage also increases. So at 1 star, it's 20%. And then already at 2 stars, it goes up to 30%, which is like a 50% increase, which is pretty significant. And then at 4 stars, it goes up to 40%. So I think already, just with this, just with the Balor's damage increasing from 20% to 40%, I think it already warrants going to 4 star, because that's a 100% increase in damage. And then remember, whenever Balor is hovering, that's going to be an additional 50%, so it's going to be 60% of attack, right? So if Homa's attacking and then the ally with Balor is attacking, that's 60% times 2, 120% of attack from Balor in a single turn. That's pretty huge. And then if you get, like instant skills in there as well, that's going to be even higher. So I think, anyway, like just with the Balor's attack increase, I think it already warrants bringing Homa's star rating from 1 to 4, because like it's great. So much more extra damage, right? At the 3rd star, when she's healthy, her movement range also increases by 1. So that's a nice extra bonus. I mean, movement range is always good in these kind of tactics games. Like, the more movement you have, the better flexibility you have, and especially for range attackers that don't have so much defenses, it's good to be able to be agile enough to move out of the way and things like that. So that's always a nice bonus. So is it worth it going from 4 stars to 5 stars? And I think yes. And the reason for that is because whenever Balor's attacking in the 5 star, Balor steals 2 random buffs, which is pretty meh. Like, I don't know. Like, you might get something great, but you might not get something great. I think it's like mixed. But Balor also gives 1 energy for Homa. So this is going to be a huge energy regen for Homa. As I said in the previous thing, like, you might be able to get 2 energy in 1 turn for Homa from the skill, right? Because when Homa attacks, Balor will attack, and then when your ally attacks, Balor will attack again. So it's already 2 energy, and then with her natural energy regen, so she can get up to 3 energy a turn. And if you look at her skills, like, she is a little bit energy, like, what does it get? Like, she's a little bit energy heavy. Her ultimate needs 3 energy, and then this skill, both of these need 2 energy, and you can use these, like, often. So like, especially say the healing, right? Like, you might want to use it every turn if you're in a very tough spot or something, and you are able to do that with this energy regen component. And on the turns that you're using Balor to hover on someone, that's also going to cost you 1 energy as well. So in one turn, you might already be using 3 energy because you might be wanting Balor to hover on somebody and then use, like, I don't know, barrel attack. So that's 3 energy you need. So she's a little bit energy heavy. So I think I think the 5-star version of her is worth it for the energy regen because it's a lot of energy regen, like every single turn. So I would at least want to get her to 4 stars for the 40%, and then depending on who else is in my waiting list, I would think about going to 5-star or not. Right now, personally, she's gonna sit in my box because I have 3 characters that I'm running shards for, which are Cocoa, August, and Sophia. And Cocoa is almost 5 stars. Like, she's at 93 out of 120. So I will wait until Cocoa hits 5 stars, and then I will switch her and Homa. And August is close to 3 stars as well, which is a point that I really wanted. And Sophia is close to 4 stars, but I'll probably want Sophia to get to 5 stars. August could probably stay at 3 stars for a while. I mean, once I hit 3 stars with him, I will think about it. What about gears? So what you really want with Homa is as much attack as possible, because everything runs off of her physical attack. Her heals, like, well, Balor's heals, runs off physical attack. Same with Golgi's heals as well, actually. And then all her attacks, like, Balor's attacks and all her other skills, everything runs off physical attack. So you want to pump up her physical attack as much as possible. This skill might, not the skill, this bow might be good on her because you can apply an additional debuff to do an extra 10% of damage. So with Homa, you can still, you can use hovering support on, say, August, and then you can still attack because it's an instant skill. So when you're attacking, you can apply this debuff and then have August take his turn and do extra damage because of the debuff you just inflicted. But you can also go another way. You can also go with this as well, because this bow increases your crit chance, right? So with additional crit, your Balor will also have more chances to crit, and Balor takes turns very often, so additional crit rate is not bad. Even if it's like 15% additional crit or something, like with the amount of attacks he takes, I think it might be okay. One of the reasons I say that is because Homa will probably not be attacking every single turn. Like, you'll probably want to use the other skills as well. So because of that, you might not be able to get an attack every turn with this. So that might be the reason why you might think of using this one, because even if you're not attacking, Balor will still benefit from the crit rate, right? So yeah, so yeah, so that's the thing about the bow. And then for this one, this is just an additional way to generate 1 extra hit from Balor. Like, you want to get as many hits from Balor as possible. So I feel like the Flying Blade Arm Guard is not a bad choice to put on Homa. And finally, I haven't really thought about which is the best tarot. I like the Temptation of the Devil because it gives you an additional 30% of attack, but I've been thinking about others as well. Most of the time for these kind of heroes, these supporting heroes, I like the Guidance of the World, but I feel like that will not work on Homa because even on, like, I feel like she's not gonna do nothing. Like, she will either buff or heal or attack. Like, she will not stand by, she will attack because she wants Balor to attack. So I feel like this is going to be very limited usage if I'm trying to get Guidance of the World in there. So that'll probably not be what I'm going for. So I haven't decided really what the best one is just yet. One possible contender is this one, because it'll give her an additional defense, but also increase the single target attack by 20% and the single target healing by 20% as well. So it might be a good one. I don't know. I have to think about it. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope it gives you a bit of coverage on Homa and what she can do and some of the nuances around her skill. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. And if you have questions or comments, leave them down below. And I will see you guys next time. Take care now.